Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the first two episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Amazon Prime television show. Let's get to this. I'm going to flat out say right now, hype for this television show wasn't that big on my hype train right now for television shows and stuff. For the shows this year, I was mostly excited for, well, I was excited for a few things. I was excited for, like, Book of Boba Fett. That didn't work out. I was excited for Obi-Wan. That didn't work out. I wasn't excited for House of the Dragon, but I'm actually loving House of the Dragon. I should be talking about that instead of this show. But I feel like when it comes to House of the Dragon, I know a lot of people want to know my review, my opinions on that show. I'm going to get to that show when the season's done. There's probably a lot I want to talk about as a whole, but so far I'm really enjoying it. 2 episodes in, it's very good. It's very good. It's gone back to the basics of what made Game of Thrones really good. It's not like this big bloated CGI fest with stupid character interactions that make no sense. It's actually very good. But Lord of the Rings, I never thought they should ever make a Lord of the Rings television show. I was okay with the video games. Play Shadow of Mordor, really good game. But I just never thought they should ever make any more movies or shows. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, directed by Peter Jackson, is perfect. It's so good. It's so epic. Great characters, great epic story. Some of the best action, some of the best practical effects you'll see in any fantasy film. It's probably one of the greatest trilogies you'll ever watch in your lifetime. It's amazing. It's timeless. It's so good. The reason, I don't think you should do it is because they did it with the Hobbit movies, and Peter Jackson returned and directed the Hobbit movies, and they weren't great. They were okay. There was entertaining elements to it, but they were very bloated, very glossy, tons of CGI, tons of pointless action, and stupid characters that I didn't give a shit about. Bilbo and Gandalf were the big stars, and the big things that make that movie great, or somewhat enjoyable. That and Gollum. Gollum's awesome. But, yeah, the Hobbit movies, they lasted too long, and they just became old and tired, and just off of 3 films, we were kind of tired of the Middle-earth franchise. But, of course, they're going to make a television show or another movie because gotta bring that money in. And I don't know, the trailers for this movie never excited me. I know Amazon's been promoting this as one of the biggest budgeted television shows, so hundreds of $1,000,000 put into this show. That means fuck all to me. I don't care if the show's hundreds of $1,000,000. I just want a quality show. And this is not based off of anything written by J.R.R. Tolkien. At least Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies had source material. This is going completely different, and that's scary. And I know a lot of people were very kind of annoyed of that. I get it. I just thought it looked underwhelming, and it looked like a big bloated CGI fest. So, not excited. Now, after watching the first 2 episodes, I was right to not be excited. Sorry, yeah. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, first 2 episodes, I'm going to flat out say, are boring episodes. They're very boring, very underwhelming. Nothing all that exciting happens. I can barely remember anyone's name in the show other than the characters I know from Lord of the Rings, like Elrond and Galadriel and stuff. I was not giving a shit about anything that was going on in the story. It felt like it was trying to be Game of Thrones in a lot of elements, how they're going through different worlds and different places and stuff, hobbits, dwarves, and elves and stuff. And none of it was interesting. There was nothing interesting going on. It was very lifeless. There was a lot of elements that felt like a soap opera. It didn't feel like Lord of the Rings. It felt like just a fantasy show. Or a Game of Thrones spin-off show. It just didn't feel... And it had no feel or spirit of what Lord of the Rings is. And everyone's like, well, we can't compare it to Lord of the Rings. I'm like, of course I can compare it to fucking Lord of the Rings. It's a Lord of the Rings show. Of course I'm going to compare it to Lord of the Rings. Despite, the Hobbit movies not being very good, they still felt like Lord of the Rings. They still felt like it was part of that franchise. It still had that heart, and it still had that element of joy and fun. There is no joy or fun in this show. They sucked any ounce of fun. And I can't, I know I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions because the show's not over yet. I think there's like 8 episodes. I've only watched 2 episodes. I'm just judging it off the 2 episodes. These 2 episodes were very lifeless, very boring, and I could care less. And there was no fun. There was barely any action that was going on. And I know some people are like, well, it's world building. They're building the worlds and stuff. And I'm like, I don't even think that's a good excuse because that's what Game of Thrones did. First 2 episodes of Game of Thrones was building the worlds and characters, but those were exciting episodes, great character moments, shocking revelations and stuff, and really bloody gore that was going on in the first 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones hooks you in like the first 10 minutes. These 2 episodes of Lord of the Rings was like 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and not once did I get hooked or grabbed into the plot. Or any of the plots. And like, again, I don't remember a single damn character's name. And I literally just got done watching it now. And I barely remember what happened. It was like so boring and tedious, and I was almost falling asleep. I'm kind of glad they're doing episodes bi-week, like every week. Because if I had to binge this in like a day, I would have fallen asleep already by now. Like, it was boring. So boring. And I don't know who this actress is that plays Galadriel. She's awful in this show. Terrible actress. So bad. Really bad performance. This doesn't feel like Galadriel. She kind of looks like a young Cate Blanchett, but she's no Cate Blanchett. And it didn't feel like Galadriel at all. Not at all. This girl doesn't, like, the whole 2 episodes, she was just this the whole episode. For my brother, for my people, I must get off the boat. It's like, what the fuck? That was the way her, I'm like, what is happening? Like, that's not Galadriel. Like, she is terrible. This actress is horrible. Terrible acting. Like, a lot of the elves, other than Elrond, the actor that plays him, again, doesn't feel like Elrond, but he's at least trying. All the elves in this show are all like the same. They're like, we must do this. It's just like, what? And then, like, I guess kind of, they brought a dwarf in episode 2. He's like a friend of Elrond. He was kind of entertaining. I kind of enjoyed him. Like, he kind of brought a little energy to the show. So I'm like, okay, but like, that's kind of it. The friendship with him and Elrond, that was literally that 8-minute plot of episode 2 that it took up like maybe 8 minutes of episode 2 with Elrond and this dwarf. That was like the only time I was kind of interested in what's going on, was this friendship between this elf and this dwarf. That's all I cared about. It's pretty sad. But no, they focus so much on fucking Galadriel on the fucking boat with this boring human, them trying to get to safety. I'm like, oh, I could care less. And these, are they hobbits or dwarves? The fucking village people. And this guy falls from the sky, and then, ooh, who is he? And like, oh, I don't care. And then there's like this like kind of romance with this elf and this human, and I'm like, I don't care. And there, again, like I said, there's barely any action. There's like one action scene in like the first 5 minutes. That's it. It's like, and yes, of course it looks nice. It looks pretty, cinematography, visually, like they put a lot of money. You can tell they put a lot of money into the show. I wish they would have put more effort into not just the visuals and the look, but maybe a little effort into the script, into maybe some of the acting. The acting in this show was pretty bad. The writing was pretty awful. And it was very stilted and very lifeless. And just Lord of the Rings was always like a very fun franchise and had all these intriguing characters. And there's no intriguing characters so far. And I know people are saying, well, just the first 2 episodes. But I'm like, there's a lot of shows, even House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon, there's like all these new characters that I love, and I'm getting so invested within. And that is also in 2 episodes. 2 episodes in House of the Dragon. I'm interested in the story. The visuals are good. The action is really good. All these new characters they brought in, I love them. Like, there's so much going on in the 2 episodes of House of the Dragon that is so much more enjoyable than anything that's happening in this Lord of the Rings show. So, I recommend House of the Dragon more than this. Like, it's a lot more intriguing, a lot better dialogue, better character interactions, just a lot of crazy shit going on. It's so intriguing. The politics in House of the Dragon is so just interesting. This show is just a very boring fantasy show that just calls itself Lord of the Rings. It doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. It's just banking on the name Lord of the Rings. I was very I can't say disappointed because I wasn't excited, but I was very bored out of my mind with the first 2 episodes. I'm gonna keep going with it. I'll watch the first season, and if the entire season is like this, I won't watch season 2. Like I made it through Book of Boba Fett, and I made it through Obi-Wan. I can make it through this boring ass generic fantasy show, but so far, not enjoying it. Couple of moments here and there that are kind of good, but boring characters, bad acting, just lifeless, and just feels nothing like Lord of the Rings. So that's my opinions on the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power. Let me know in the comments below. Do you like this show? Are you feeling it? Do you think it's like living up to all the hype, or do you think it's just boring as fuck? Let me know. Comment below. Let me know. And as always, if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel and join the dark side.